We're back on the record. The time is 10:47 a.m.
I may be repeating myself, so I apologize in advance. I just want to make sure that I ask you about these communities. Sitting here today, you cannot confirm that you use the beach for the uses you've described, other than walking and riding up and down the beach, directly in front of Maravella Master Association Incorporated. True?
Maravilla, is that what you said?
Yes, sir.
I have used the beach in front of Maravilla to sit, lay out. Remember where that's at.
Tell us how many times you have used the beach in front of Maravella.
Could not say.
Tell us what years you used the beach in front of Maravella.
Could have been most likely in the early 2000 time frame. 2000, somewhere in the early 2000s.
Why do you remember using the beach in front of Maravella?
That period of time, I spent more time on the west end of the county. Knew where they're located. Had some real estate listings that I set open houses for in that community. Was there more.
During that period of time, you can't remember how many times you used the beach.
No, sir.
What time of year did you use the beach?
Any time of the year.
Well, was it 12 months a year, 1 month a year, summer, winter, spring, fall? Give us some idea.
Would have been more than 1 month a year. Probably more in the summertime to fall. Spring, summer, and fall. Not quite as much in the wintertime.
How'd you find time to use the beach if you were working?
Didn't work 24/7.
You know where Sandcliff Owners Association is?
Sand Cliffs is on the east end of the county.
Can you tell us, sitting here today, whether you use the beaches for the uses you described today, other than walking up and down the beaches, directly in front of Sandcliffs?
I drove up and down the beach. But I don't recall any other activities at that location.
Where is Seashells by the Sea Master Association?
Don't recall.
You would know if you used the beach directly in front of it.
No, sir.
True?
True.
That's a true statement?
Yes.
During any time you have used the beach, well, I haven't really focused on your adult life. By your adult life, what I mean is from the time you graduated from high school through today. Let's pick the period, say, from 1980 through the year 2000. Okay?
Okay.
Describe your beach use, your personal beach use. In Walton County.
Driving on
And
the beach.
Well, I'm not. Let me be more specific.
Okay.
Describe how many times you use the beach. Let's start with how many times.
I couldn't tell you.
You don't know?
No, sir.
Can you tell us how many times a year you use the beach during the period from 1980 to 2000?
No, sir.
During the period from 1980 through 2018, can you tell us how many times you use the beach?
No, sir.
Since the filing of this lawsuit in 2018 through today, and we're here, it's December 7, 2022, can you tell us how many times a year you have used the beach on average?
No, sir.
Have you used the beach at all between between 2018 and today?
Yes.
I take it much less than you would have used it at another period in your life?
Yes.
Was it less than 5 times a year during this period?
Probably. Yes.
From 2000 to 2018, did you use the beach less than 5 times a year?
I couldn't tell you to be exact.
From 1980 to 2000, did you use the beach less than 5 times a year?
1980 to 2000.
Yes,
Less than 5 times a year? No, sir.
Did you use it more than 5 times a year?
Yes.
Did you use it more than 10 times a year?
I couldn't tell you.
Right. Have you ever heard of a document called Formal Notice of Intent for Customary Use?
It's possible. I couldn't say for certain.
If I told you that this initiated the process for the county filing a lawsuit, would that refresh your recollection?
No, sir.
On November 3rd, 2018, you were not a member of the Board of County Commissioners.
Correct.
There was a meeting at which the Board of County Commissioners voted to approve the formal notice of intent for customary use. Did you attend that meeting?
I don't recall if I did.
It was a meeting that had to do with going forward with the process to establish customary use. Does that refresh your recollection at all?
No, sir. I do not remember.
So do you not know if you've ever seen the formal notice of intent for customary use dated November 3rd, 2018? You don't know, right?
No, sir. That's correct.
Have you ever seen the corrected amended complaint that was filed in this lawsuit by the county?
Don't recall per se. No, sir.
In both the notice, formal notice of intent for customary use in the complaint, the county attached what they call sources of evidence that establish customary use. Have you ever reviewed any of those sources of evidence?
I have seen some documents. Don't recall what all those documents included, but I have seen some at times.
Tell us the categories that they were in. What were they? What were they?
And I do not recall. Could have been pictures, documents. I really don't recall. I've seen something, but I don't recall exactly what it was.
In support of the county's position that the public has the right to use private beachfront, one of the sources of evidence was archaeological evidence. Have you reviewed archaeological evidence?
I don't recall, don't remember if I did.
Have you reviewed newspaper articles?
Don't remember if I've reviewed actual newspaper articles concerning customer use other than maybe a headline.
Have you reviewed aerial photos of the beach that the county attaches as sources of evidence to these documents?
No, sir.
Yes or no, sir?
Oh, no, sir. No, sir.
Have you reviewed patent deeds which are listed in these two documents, the formal notice and the complaint, which the county lists as sources of evidence?
No, sir.
Have you used plat maps, which the county lists as sources of evidence in both of these documents?
No, sir.
Isn't it important to you as a citizen to review these documents which the county relies on?
Object to the form.
Go ahead and answer, sir.
I'm not an attorney, so some of these things wouldn't mean anything to me.
I'm asking whether you think it's important to you as a citizen of the county to review these documents, these sources of evidence that I've referred to.
Object to the form.
Please answer.
I answered. Same answer. I'm not an attorney, so I don't.
So, are you telling us that only attorneys would understand these documents and you as a private citizen would not?
Object to the form.
Yes or no, sir?
I haven't seen the documents, so without seeing it, it's hard to answer that question.
I know you haven't seen the documents. What I'm asking about is whether you think it's important for you as a private citizen to review these documents, which you haven't done.
Object to the form.
I've already answered that the same. I answered the same way.
Was it important to you as a private citizen? Don't you think it's important as a private citizen for you to review these documents?
Object to the form.
Sir?
Same answer.
It requires a yes or no answer. It either is important to you or it's not important to you. Which is it?
Object to the form.
Sir, is it important to you or not important to you to review these documents?
Object to the form.
Waiting for your answer.
Already have.
Your answer had to do with being a lawyer, right?
My answer was I'm not an attorney, so I don't know what forms. I haven't seen the forms.
Why haven't you looked at the sources of evidence?
Object to the form. This is getting awfully close to harassment.
I'm just going to repeat my question. Why haven't you looked at these sources of evidence?
Object to the form. Please move on, Mr. Levin.
I'm waiting for an answer, and then we can move on.
And he's giving you an answer 5 times.
No speaking objections, please. Let's not go there.
Then let's move
Sir,
on.
why haven't you reviewed the sources of evidence?
All right, we're going to seek a protective order. This is harassment. Would you like to pin this and move on? Or would you like to
We'll
shut
pin
it
it
down until we can get in touch with Judge Green? It's your choice, Mr. Levin.
Well, if you're going to move for protective order, then I will move on.
Thank you, sir.
Let's not discuss it any further. In this lawsuit that was brought by the county is required to establish certain elements in order to prove its case. One of the elements is that the use is ancient. What is your definition of ancient?
Object to the form.
Theriak, will you tell this witness he's got to answer when you object to the form, please?
He doesn't have to answer. It's up to him to decide whether he wants to answer. You may answer if you would like to, sir.
Well, if you don't want to answer, I will bring that to the judge.
That's fine. The question was what I think ancient is.
Let me repeat the question. What's your definition of the word ancient?
Object to the form.
Old, past,
How old?
Object to the form.
guess that's in the eyes of the beholder.
Are the Egyptian pyramids ancient?
Object to the form.
In your view.
Old means different things to different people.
I'm not talking about the word old. I asked you if the Egyptian pyramids are ancient.
Object to the form.
They are referred to as ancient.
Do you agree they are ancient?
Object to the form.
Putting a time frame on ancient is tough.
That's right. Putting a time frame on ancient is tough, isn't it?
Object to the form.
Isn't it, sir?
Object to the form.
In the eyes of the beholder.
Isn't putting a time frame on ancient tough?
Object to the
We agree
form.
on. Mr. Theriak, just, maybe it's my cadence, but, please let me finish my question.
It sounded like you had finished, so I apologize.
I know, and sometimes it's my cadence, and I apologize for that in advance. Isn't putting a time frame on ancient tough?
Object to the form.
I guess that's not my decision to determine if it's tough or not.
I'm asking for your belief, sir. You're not the judge. I'm not the judge. No one who's attending this deposition, not the court reporter. No one is asking you to be Judge Green, who will have to make that decision. You're here as a private citizen, and I'm asking you whether or not putting a time frame on the word ancient is tough.
Object to the form.
True?
I think that is a determination for the courts to decide, not me.
Right. That's a true statement. That's right. The court will determine that. But that's not what I'm asking. I need an answer to the question. I'll pose it again. Isn't putting a time frame on the word ancient tough? And I'm asking for your personal opinion.
Object to the
As
form.
a citizen of Baltimore County.
I thought you were through, Mr. Levin. I object to the form.
Sir, your answer is? Is that a true statement?
Again, that's not my decision.
Are you refusing to answer the question?
Not sure to ask you. You're asking me to speculate on what I think and the definition of something, and I gave you the definition of my idea of what ancient was. It was old.
Then I asked you if the Egyptian pyramids, in your opinion, are old. What's your answer to that?
Object to the
Are
form.
They're old to me.
Are they also ancient? Are
Object
you
to the
using the
form.
word old and ancient synonymously?
Object to the form.
Old is ancient, I said, could be referred to as old. Pyramids have been referred to as ancient. The actual
You-
definition, I can't tell you what the actual Webster's definition of those are.
All right, I'm 67 years old. Am I ancient in your view?
Object to the form.
Am I ancient in your view? You're not answering my question. I need an answer.
Object to the form.
And again, I think that would be the determination of who would you think what ancient would be. I don't know the Webster's definition for that. So, ancient.
You have no person.
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead. I'm sorry I interrupted you. Complete
No,
your
sir.
answer.
No, sir. I don't have a personal view of that.
You don't have a personal view of what ancient means, true?
Object to the form.
One of the other elements of beach use establishment is that the use must be reasonable. Now, I'm going to give you some examples. If my clients own private beach, let's take one of my clients that owns a single-family home, and their beach is directly in front of their lot. Would erecting 20 umbrellas by members of the public on their beach be reasonable in your view?
Object to the form.
If that is what people have done for years and years and years, which it has, since I've been old enough to go to the beach, it would be.
Would erecting 50 umbrellas in front of my client's property, right on the beach, by members of the public be reasonable in your view?
Object to the form.
People have been doing that for a long time. So I think they have a reasonable expectation to continue.
So it would be reasonable in your view.
Object to the form.
It's been reasonable for people for a long time.
Your answer is yes, it would be reasonable, sir?
Object to the form.
It's what people's been doing for a long time.
So your contention is that people have been erecting 100 umbrellas directly in front of my client's beachfront property for years and years, and therefore that is reasonable. True?
Object to the form.
I wouldn't specify a number of umbrellas. I don't know anything about the property or how many is erected or when.
I'm not asking you that.
Okay.
You were the one who said that it's been used that way for years and years. Let's separate the actual use from the question I'm asking. Setting aside actual use, do you believe it would be reasonable for members of the public to at the same time erect 100 umbrellas in front, directly in front of my client's property on their beachfront?
Object to the form.
And I said people have been doing that for a long time, so it was reasonable for those people to do that for a long time. Years,
Right?
dating back my lifetime.
Would it be reasonable for members of the public to erect 200 umbrellas at the same time in front of my client's property directly on the beachfront, dry
Object to the
sand
fo-
beach.
Object to the form.
In your,
Can't even speculate on that, not knowing anything about the property.
I just explained that it was a beachfront lot for a typical single-family home.
Object to the
Would
form.
it be reasonable for members of the public to erect 200 umbrellas, same time in front of my client's property, right on their beachfront property, in your view?
Object to the form.
I think it is reasonable for people to continue to do what they've done for a long, long, long time.
All right, so in the 60s and 70s, you would agree with me that the beach use was much less than it is today, true?
True.
When you were a kid, 9 or 10, 11 years old using the beach, there were nowhere near as many people using the beach as they were in, say, 2005, true?
True.
And that's because of the development of the Walton County coastline in South Walton County, true?
Because there are more people here.
Thank you. If the court finds that the public has the, well, let me ask you a question. You have property on Beaver Dam Road, right?
Correct.
You dig a big hole on your property and somebody trips and falls in it and sues you, you pay for insurance to cover that, true?
I have homeowners insurance.
Which pays for insurance to cover that kind of event, right?
I have to review my policies, see if it covered that or not.
Well, let's assume it does. It's called homeowners insurance. There's a liability provision, okay?
Okay.
The owners of beachfront property who have homeowners insurance also insure their property, true?
I would assume they do. I can't say that for sure.
Right. It's a fair assumption, though, right?
Fair.
And if somebody steps in a hole on their property, their homeowner's insurance will step up and defend that.
Yes, that's up to their insurance and what kind of insurance they have.
Let's assume that they will. Now, if the court finds the public has the right to use privately owned beach, that increases the potential for people tripping and falling on beachfront property because more people will use it, right?
Object to the form.
That's speculative. I don't know if I could answer that or not.
All right, can we use a little common sense here? Okay? If the number of people who walk on your beachfront property, set up umbrellas, and do all the uses that the county is trying to establish increases, multiplies many times because the public is allowed to use it, it's more likely that somebody could trip and fall in a hole that may exist there. True?
Object to the
That's common.
form. I'm sorry, I thought you were through, Mr. Levin. Object to the form. And please don't insult my client.
Whether or not it increases the likelihood of that happening or not, I can't answer that. Again, that's speculative. That's asking me to speculate on whether something's going to happen or not.
All right. If the court rules by establishing customary use rights, the county doesn't intend to pay for insurance, liability insurance for my client's beachfront, right?
Object to the form.
I couldn't tell you what the county's going to do.
You think the county should pay for liability insurance if the court rules that the public can use my client's beachfront property?
Object to the form.
Can't answer whether they should or they shouldn't.
Why not?
Object to the form.
That's not my place to do that.
Do you have an opinion one way or the other?
Object to the form.
No, sir.
Do you have an opinion as to whether or not the county should pay for real estate taxes, or at least a portion of it?
Object to the form.
No.
Let me just finish. If the court establishes customary use on my client's beachfront property, do you have an opinion one way or the other as to whether or not the county should pay for part of the real estate tax that my clients pay?
No, sir.
Object to the form.
If the establishment of customary use on my client's private beachfront property lowers their property values, do you have an opinion one way or the other whether the county should compensate my clients for the loss in the value of their property?
Object to the form.
No, sir.
Why not?
Object to the form.
Do not have an opinion one way or another.
Do you have any empathy for my clients if the court establishes customary use on their privately owned beachfront property?
Object to the form.
Speculative. I'm not in that situation, so
Would you? I'm asking how you would feel, your personal feelings.
don't know.
Would you have any empathy for my clients if the court establishes customary use on their privately owned beachfront property?
Object to the form.
I don't know how I would feel if something did or did not happen. No, do not know.
So you have no opinion one way or the other today?
No, sir.
Another element of the cause of action the county must establish is that these uses must be without interruption. Let's talk about that, okay? If a member of the public tries to use my client's privately owned beachfront property, and my client stops him at the property line and says, "You can't come on my property," would you consider that an interruption of that use?
Object to the form.
I do not have a legal opinion on that. I'm not an attorney.
I'm not asking you for a legal opinion. So let's clarify. I'm not asking you for a legal opinion today. I'll never ask you for a legal opinion. You're not a lawyer. You're not a judge. So in answer to my questions, when you say, "I don't know a legal opinion," that's not my question. Do we understand each other? Sir, do we understand each other?
Yes.
Okay. So, given my example, a member of the public wants to use my client's property, beachfront property, and my client stops that person at the property line, says you can't use the property. Does that interrupt that use?
Object.
In your personal opinion,
I do
Object to
not
the
have
form.
an opinion on that.
okay? Does that constitute a disputed use of my client's property?
Object to the
I do
form.
not have an opinion on that.
Is there a year or time when you think any one of the uses the county has listed in their complaint was established?
Object to the form.
I'm not sure of that question. Can you repeat it?
Right. Is there a year or a time period when you think customary use rights became established for any of the 9 uses the county has sought to establish in the lawsuit?
Object to the form.
No, sir. I don't have an opinion on that. I don't know.
Let's change subjects. What's the process for determining if the county is going to purchase beachfront property? How does that work?
Now, is this my personal opinion or is my opinion of
No, you know how it works.
Personally.
You're a member of the county commission. There's a process. What's the process?
Object to the
That's-
form.
Does it?
that's an opinion of my work capacity? And
No, it's not. I'm not asking for your opinion. I'm not asking for, what you talk to other people about. I'm asking for what is the process?
Object
Who
to the form.
recommends it to the county? How does it start? Who comes to the county and says, You should buy this beachfront property. How does that work?
Object to the form.
Again, I have to ask, am I being asked as a commissioner or a private citizen? Because as a private citizen, I wouldn't have any idea.
You're one person. What's the answer?
Object to the form.
I'm waiting for an answer, sir. How does it work?
I object to the form.
And you'll notice that your lawyer's objections are not a legislative privilege objection. He's objecting to the form. That means that you are able to answer the question. Are you going to answer my question?
That is brought up in front of the Board of County Commissioners.
And
Okay,
if
let's
you're
start there.
going to play
How-
commentary, Mr. Levin, if you want to ask a question of this nature, he's not a corporate representative.
Yeah, but he's a human being who has knowledge, and I'm asking him what his personal knowledge is of the process. What is your personal knowledge
Object to the form.
of the process by which the county ultimately ends up buying beachfront property?
Same as I just stated, it is brought up to the Board of County Commissioners.
Okay, let's start there. Who brings up to the Board of County Commissioners the prospect of purchasing beachfront property?
Object to the form.
It has been, at different times and different commissions, the process has changed.
List for me the process. Who,
Object.
at different times and with different commissions, has brought the prospect of purchasing beachfront to the county commission?
Object to the form.
I could not tell you what prior commission's done.
Okay, fair enough. Tell me what has happened while you were a commissioner.
It has been brought by agents, I believe. Citizens have approached commissioners. It's been brought up by Tourist Development Council, which is the county. Brings it to the board.
During the time you were a commissioner, who has brought to the attention of the Board of County Commissioners the prospect of purchasing beachfront?
Object to the form.
Those people I just stated.
Okay, let's start with the Tourist Development Council. What have they brought to the county commission as a prospect for purchasing beachfront?
Object to the form.
Who have they brought or what have they brought?
What? What property?
Oh, I couldn't tell you all the different properties.
How many are there?
Couldn't tell you that either.
How many properties has the county purchased, beachfront properties, during the time you were a commissioner?
I couldn't tell you that either.
Do you remember the purchase of a property last year?
I do.
Did you vote to approve the purchase of a property that closed last year?
I did.
Okay, tell us about where that is located and what it looks like.
I remember a beachfront property in Seagrove Beach. I remember some vacant property in Miramar Beach that is not beachfront. Those two stand out. I believe that was last year.
I'm only interested
Could
in
be
asking you
before us.
about beachfront property, so my
Okay.
questions will all be focused on that. Do you understand?
I do now.
All right. Let's talk about the beachfront property in Seagrove Beach that the county purchased. Do you understand?
I do.
What did the county pay for that?
It was offered at $10 million. What we finally wound up paying, I think the county paid 7 to 8. I'd have to go back. I don't remember exactly. There were some, can't remember the exact number. Less than 10.
What was the length of beachfront that was purchased?
What was what? I'm sorry.
The length of the beachfront itself that was purchased.
I couldn't tell you.
Who owned that beachfront that sold it to the county?
Do not remember his name.
Let me show you what has been marked. I'm going to ask that we share tab number 13, please, which will be marked as exhibit number 2. Parker, are you able to read the headline?
I can. It's not all I can read, but I can read it.
Can you read where? So I'm showing you the headline for Northwest Florida Daily News, which has been marked as Exhibit 2, and the headline reads, "Done deal, Walton County Commission consummates $9.5 million purchase of Eastern Lake property." Did I read that correctly?
Yes, sir.
Is that the Eastern Lake property you were referring to?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And it says here, Seagrove Beach. Well, it reads, Seagrove Beach, with little time to spare, the Walton County Commission was able to salvage a deal that will add an estimated 500 feet of beach to its public property inventory. Did I read that correctly?
I don't know if you did or not. I can't read that. So,
Can we
can't
make
say.
this bigger, please, so it can be read?
That's correct. First sentence.
Does that refresh your recollection about how much beachfront property was purchased?
I mean, it could have been 500 feet. I don't believe everything you see in the newspaper, but I'd have to look at the documents to know exactly.
Right. You don't have any reason to believe it wasn't 500 feet purchased, correct?
I do not.
You voted in favor of this purchase.
I did.
Purchase price was $9.5 million,
Okay.
correct?
Again, there was some credits in there that was given. I don't remember what the exact, without going back and look at the details, but I know it was less than 10.
Now, a lawsuit was filed in 2018, right?
I have no idea.
You have no idea.
In 2018, no, sir.
Well, I'm telling you the lawsuit was filed in 2018. You have any reason to believe it wasn't?
No, sir.
Okay. Lawsuit was filed in 2018. I'm sorry. Yeah, it was filed in 2018. This property was purchased in 2021, right?
I guess so, yes, sir.
In 2018, when the county filed its lawsuit, this beach was privately owned, right?
Would have been, yes, sir.
When the county filed its lawsuit, it attempted to establish, in part, that this beach was subject to customary use, since, except for the publicly owned property, the county is trying to establish customary use all along the beach. True?
Couldn't be 100% without reading the suit. Yes, sir. I couldn't answer that. The exact particulars of the wording.
County is attempting to establish customary use all along 26 miles of Walton County Beach, except for that which is already owned by the government, right?
I believe so.
And this Seagrove Beach property would have been part of that private property at the time the county filed a lawsuit in 2018. True?
I would believe so.
What reason would county have to buy property, spend $9.5 million on the purchase?
Object.
If its position
I'm
was,
sorry, thought you were done.
That public already had a right to use this beach.
Are you done, Mr. Levin? I didn't want to interrupt.
Thank you, and I'm done.
Zoom makes it difficult because I can't see your face, so I apologize. I object.
No problem.
And will seek a protective order if you demand that this commissioner address motives for a legislative decision.
That's your objection? Are you instructing him not to answer?
I am instructing the witness. Let me strike that. No, I am not directing him not to answer. What I am stating is that if you force this issue and force the commissioner to answer a question regarding the motives, then I will shut the deposition down and seek a protective order, or you can move on.
Well, I'm going to make a record of my questions, and we can bring that to Judge Green. I'll put a pin in it if you're saying you're going to move for a protective order, but I do need to make a record about the questions that you're instructing him on, or not instructing him on, or that you're going to seek a protective order on. Do you understand me?
And make sure you understand me. I did not direct him to not answer a question. As you know, it is very limited to the extent that I can. But I can seek a protective order when you ask questions about the motives, reasons, or evidence for a legislative decision, which is what you asked.
Okay. I'm going to put a pin in this. I am going to make a record so we can bring it to the judge. All right. Let me move on to my next question. If the county is able to establish customary use on this parcel of beachfront property, what's your understanding of the difference between the rights the public would have had if the county had not purchased property, and if the county had established customary use rights on this as private property? What's the difference in terms of your understanding? Did you hear my question?
I did. I'm thinking.
Go right ahead and think.
Basically, that the public would not be able to use properties in front of private residences on the beach.
I'm asking you to compare the rights the public will have to use this beach at Seagrove, county acquired, to what rights it would have had the county not acquired this and established customary use rights on it. What's the difference in your mind?
I thought that's what I just said. If I'm understanding the question correctly, it's whether or not people could use that area in front of the residences or their property on the beach.
Let me break it down, because I don't think you're understanding my question.
Okay.
Now that the county has purchased this beachfront property, the public can sunbathe on it, right?
Correct.
If the county establishes public use on privately owned beachfront property next door, that would entitle the public to sunbathe on it, right?
Correct.
On this property, We're looking at exhibit number 2, which you can take it down, please. And on Seacrest Beach, since the county purchased it, members of the public can walk on that beachfront,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
If the county establishes the customary use right to walk on privately owned beach, say next door, the public would be able to walk on that privately owned beach.
I would assume yes.
County has purchased property at Seacrest Beach, the 500 feet of property we're talking about, referenced in Exhibit 2. That means that members of the public can use a beach umbrella that is 7 feet or less in diameter on county-owned property, right?
I'm not sure what the diameter rules are on the umbrella, but I would assume yes.
And if the county establishes the public use right to use an umbrella on privately owned beachfront, the public would be able to use the privately owned beachfront to put up an umbrella. True?
I would assume.
And the same goes for picnicking, fishing on public lands, as would go for privately owned lands on the beachfront that are owned by private owners, if customer use is established on that private land, right?
Object to the form.
I would assume what people have been used to doing in the past.
Being specific now. I'm asking you about specific uses. And what I'm getting at is that the uses that the county has created for the public by buying land are essentially the same uses that the county is attempting to create on privately owned land, right?
Object to the form.
Yeah, I'm not understanding. So
We're making a comparison here.
okay,
Use of county-owned land for sunbathing permitted, right?
yes.
Use of privately owned land for sunbathing permitted if customer use is established, right?
Yes.
Use of county land for fishing is permitted, right?
Yes.
Use of privately owned land of customer use for fishing, if established, is permitted.
I would assume.
Swimming and surfing off of county-owned land, permitted.
Yes.
Swimming and surfing off of privately owned land where customer use for those uses is established would be permitted.
I would assume so.
Placement of surfing or fishing equipment on county-owned land is permitted.
Depending on the stipulations of the code.
Assuming the code permits it, yes?
Yes.
Swimming or surfing off the beach on privately owned beachfront would be permitted if customer use is established for those uses, right?
I would assume.
Building sand creations on county land, that's permitted.
Yes.
Building sand creations on privately owned beachfront, that would be permitted if customer use for that use was established, right?
I would assume so.
So establishing customary use on privately owned land is in essence making that privately owned land a public beach.
Object to the form.
I'm guessing public beach, I guess, is up to interpretation of a definition.
Your answer is?
There
Based
wasn't.
upon your
There wasn't.
answer is what? Based upon your interpretation?
I do not have an interpretation of that.
So you don't know whether or not establishment of customer use on privately owned beach makes that a public beach, in essence. You have no opinion on that one way or the other. True?
True.
I'm going to ask our technician to share tab number 3, and let's mark that as exhibit number 3.
Mr. Levine, we are approaching noon Central. Approximately how much?
Almost done. I'm pretty close to being done, Mr. Theriak.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be that long. And we may even get out of here by noon, Central Time.
Thank you, sir.
I'm showing you what has been marked as exhibit number 3. It reads, well, first of all, can you see that document?
I'm working on that.
And can our technician make this as large as possible for our witness?
I can read it. I just have to take my time. That's better.
Well, it's a little cut off. Let's,
Yeah.
okay. Make it a little bit smaller so nothing's cut off, please. Thank you. I think that works. All right. I'm showing you what has been marked as exhibit number 3 to your deposition. It reads, candidate, Mike Barker, office, county commissioner, District 3. Contact information, then there's your address, your email, and it says candidate statement. Did I read that correctly?
Yes, sir.
That is your candidate statement, which you published. True?
I'm assuming it is, yes.
All right, well, let's do this. I want to call your attention to, let's see, the last page of this. Go up a little bit more. The last page of the text. Keep going. All right, let's stop there. See where it says vote for Mike Barker County at the bottom?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to start reading 5 lines up from that. Do you see that? It says, I will stand up for what is right.
Yes.
Did you write that?
Yes.
Okay. And apply comment, work with and for you, meaning the citizens of the county,
Yes.
right?
That's correct.
And apply common sense when making decisions. You wrote that.
Yes.
You believe that.
Yes.
You believed it then, when you
Yes.
wrote it, and you believe it today.
Yes.
Does the county keep or clean private? Does the county keep clean or clean private beaches?
I couldn't say for sure.
Does the county maintain privately owned beaches?
I couldn't say that for sure either.
Will the county maintain beaches if customary use is established in this lawsuit?
Can't say either.
You don't know if that would be what is right,
Don't
as
know.
you stated in your candidate statement.
I can't speculate on what they will or won't do.
I'm not asking you about that. I'm asking you about the period before you became a county commissioner, which is when this candidate statement was published, right?
Correct?
So when you published this statement, what was your belief about whether or not it was right for the county to maintain beaches if customary use is established in this lawsuit?
Objection to the form.
You can answer.
I can't tell you if I had a thought at that time when I wrote that statement or not, whether we were going to maintain cleaning beaches or not. I wasn't
It wasn't
elect-
important.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. You finish your statement. Go ahead.
I wasn't elected yet, so I said,
So as a candidate, go ahead. I'm sorry. I keep interrupting you. I don't mean to.
no, I said I would make good decisions, what that statement said. Common sense.
As a candidate, would it have been a good decision for the county to maintain the beaches if customary use is established in the lawsuit, which you knew was pending at the time that you ran for office?
Object to the form.
I did know that, yes, that it was pending.
Okay? Knowing that the lawsuit was pending, as a candidate, did you believe that it was right for the county to maintain privately owned beach if customary use is established?
I did not know the stipulations of the lawsuit at that time.
You had no opinion at that time.
No, sir.
Did you believe it was right at that time that you were a candidate for county to establish customary use without paying for insurance on the beach?
Object to the form.
I had no opinion on whether or not the county even had insurance. I had no idea at that time.
Do you have an opinion today?
No, sir.
Do you have an opinion today about whether or not the county should maintain privately owned beach?
Object to the form, and this goes to legislative motives.
I'll move
And-
on.
Thank you.
Are you, I just want to hear your answer, though. Are you instructing the witness not to answer?
No, on the legislative issue, my remedy is to seek a protective order on the question.
All right. At the time you were a candidate, did you believe it was right for the general public to use private beaches without the county paying or reducing the amount of real estate taxes?
I believed it was right for people to be able to use the beaches as they had in the past.
Without the county reducing the amount of real estate taxes private beach owners paid?
I did not have an opinion on that.
Do you have an opinion today?
No, sir.
Object to the form.
Let's go off the record for 5 minutes.
Thank you.
We're going off the record at 11:50 a.m. We're back on the record at 11:53 a.m.
Has the county commission voted to adopt a limit on what it will spend on attorney's fees and expert witness fees to establish customary use?
Not that I'm aware of.
Has the county adopted a budget for the payment of attorney's fees and expert witness fees?
Object to the form.
The county adopts a budget every year.
Right. And I'm asking if, as part of that budget, has the county adopted an amount or a number, a line item, for the amount of attorney's fees and costs it will spend in this lawsuit?
Object to the form.
I believe there's a line item for everything.
Do you know if there's a line item for the attorney's fees and costs the county is anticipating it will spend or budgets to spend during 2022?
Object to the form.
Without looking at the budget, I couldn't tell you.
What do you have to do, if anything, with budgets, since you have an area of expertise, as you've indicated, with budgeting?
What do I have to do with it? Is that what your question was?
Yeah. I mean, I know you vote on budgets. I'm not asking that. Do you have any involvement with creating budgets for the county?
The county department heads submit through the CFO, submits the budget request to the commissioners. commissioners review those requests, discuss it with the department heads and the CFO, then bring it to public hearing and vote on it.
At a public hearing, has the county ever discussed the amount that it was willing to spend on this lawsuit in attorney's fees and costs?
Object to the form.
I don't recall.
At a public hearing, has the county ever discussed the amount it actually has spent on attorney's fees and costs in this lawsuit?
Object to the form.
Do not recall.
Has the county ever announced at a public hearing the amount of attorney's fees that has been spent thus far in the lawsuit?
Object to the form.
I do not recall.
Are you aware that the county has spent over $3.5 million in legal fees and expert witness fees on this case?
Object to the form.
I do not know that specific number. No, sir.
Does it concern you at all that public should have this information?
Object to the form.
I believe the county budget is public record.
But to your recollection, you don't know whether or not it has been publicly discussed at a public meeting, correct?
Object to the form.
That's correct.
Did you read Dr. Miller's report concerning customary use?
I do not recall. Don't remember if I did.
You know who he is?
No, sir.
He is the expert that was retained by the county, Dr. James Miller, concerning customary use. Does that refresh your recollection?
County didn't retain him during my tenure as commissioner, so.
Okay. He's currently retained by the county as an expert. Are you aware of that?
Object to the form.
No, sir.
Are you aware that he prepared a report for the formal notice of intent to declare customary use on the beach?
Object to the form.
That I prepared the report?
Now, are you aware that Dr. James Miller prepared a report in support of the November 3rd, 2018 formal notice of intent for customary use?
Object to the form.
No, sir.
Are you aware that the county has disclosed Dr. James Miller as an expert witness?
No, sir.
Is it important, do you think, for you to speak to him as a member of the public?
Object to the form.
Don't have an opinion on that, whether I speak to him as a member of the public.
Okay. You've never met him, I take it.
No, sir.
You know. Have you ever been involved in a lawsuit personally?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What lawsuits?
I was 15 years old. A gentleman I'd sold a motorcycle to took me to small claims court at 15 years old to say that me at 15 years old to say that I had told him the motorcycle was 1 year and it was in fact a different year. Came to court along with my parents and the gentleman that I had purchased a motorcycle from. And it was very short-lived in court, and the judge dismissed the case, one because I was 15 years old and two because the year of the motorcycles are stamped on the fork of the motorcycle. It's kind of hard to miss.
Have you ever been a party in any other lawsuit?
With the county, personally, or yes, with the county.
What lawsuit?
Can't think. Numerous laws. Well, personally, I don't. The only one I can remember personally with the county was the last one with Maxwell.
Heather Maxwell,
Yes,
the assistant county attorney?
former.
Former assistant county attorney.
Yes,
Who was Larry Jones?
Former county administrator.
When did you meet Larry Jones?
Uh, 20 years ago, 30, I don't know. I've known him for a long time. Back when he was a commissioner, I knew him. So
He was a commissioner.
probably when he was a commissioner.
He was a commissioner from 2000 to 2012.
Something like that, yes. I think he had 3
He was
terms.
also. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yes, I think he served 3 terms.
He was also the county administrator.
Yes.
He retired, I guess. I shouldn't say retired. His tenure as administrator ended April 1st, 2022.
Exact dates I don't know, but that sounds about right.
He was involved with the county's customary use litigation.
I don't know to what extent he was involved. I couldn't say.
You have no idea what his role was with respect to this customary use issue?
No, sir, other than being county administrator.
Was there anyone at the county who knew more than Larry Jones to speak on behalf of the county concerning customary use?
I couldn't say.
When did you first start seeing on the beach signs in the nature of private beach or no trespassing or the like?
Couldn't say that either when I first started seeing it.
Tell me what you remember about first seeing them.
In the newspaper. I remember it being printed in the newspaper.
Which newspaper?
It was probably either had to been the Fort Walton Daily News or the Defuniak Herald. Probably both.
Was that during the time, was that before you became well, it had to be before you became a commissioner, right?
Right.
Was it before 2018?
I couldn't tell you that now. I don't remember
Was
specifically.
was it after 2018?
I'm sure there was some after 2018, yes.
Have you personally observed signs like no trespassing, private beach, no tents, or the like?
I have in different areas, specifically where I couldn't say, but I have, yes.
When did you first start seeing those signs personally, yourself?
Within the last couple of years.
Couple meaning,
2.
has anyone who's a private beach owner stopped you from using their private beach?
No, sir.
Has anyone attempted to stop you from using their private beach?
No, sir. I haven't been to the beach in a while.
Have you used anyone's private beach in the last 4 years?
No, sir.
In the last 10 years?
I've been to the beach in the last 10 years, specifically where in various locations now. What specific part of that beach I couldn't say, but I've used the beach in the last 10 years, yes.
I asked whether or not you've used, to your knowledge, anyone's privately owned beach in the last 10 years. If you know.
To my knowledge, I do not know.
Have you used anyone's privately owned beach, if you know, in the last 15 years?
I've used the beach in the last 15 years. Who specifically owned it, I couldn't tell you.
In the last 20 years, have you used anyone's privately owned beach?
Same answer. I've used the beach in the last 20 years, but specifics to who owned it, I was there with everybody else.
In the last 30 years, have you used anyone's privately owned beach, to your knowledge?
Same answer.
Which is, you don't know.
Couldn't tell
Couldn't
you.
tell who owned it, right?
Correct.
In the last 40 years, have you used anyone's privately owned beach, to your knowledge?
Same answer.
Which is, you don't know.
I use the beach, like everyone
But you
else
can't-
did.
Right, but you can't tell us specifically if you used anyone's privately owned beach in the last 40 years.
No, sir.
True?
True.
The answer is true.
True.
Okay. In the last 60 years, can you tell us whether or not you used anyone's privately owned beach?
No, sir.
And that's because you just don't know.
Yes, sir. I use the
Sure.
beach. So,
But you don't know if it was someone's privately owned beach that you used, true?
true.
I have no further questions for now. There may be other lawyers who want to ask you some questions who represent interveners.
Mr. Barker, good afternoon. My name is Robbie Stickler. I represent the Edgewater Beach Association interveners and the individual unit owners. I just need to get some sort of clarity, if you will. I know you've covered a lot of ground. Forgive me if it seems like I sort of bounce around, but I'm just going to try to clean up some of my notes from Mr. Levine's deposition testimony that he elicited from you. Where I've got some gaps, either where I didn't hear the question correctly or your response. I just need to sort of figure out what that is for my notes. So I don't intend to try to be confusing, but bear with me as I sort of bounce topic to topic here.
Mr. Sickler? Mr. Sickler?
Yeah,
This is Dave Thuriak. Do you have a guess at how much time? We're afternoon now, and if we're looking at anything more than 15, 20 minutes, then I'm going to suggest that we recess for lunch and pick it back up.
I don't think I should be more than 10 or 15 minutes. A lot of it's going to be fleshing out questions that have already been asked and then some issues related to the ADA and public notice.
Could we?
So I don't anticipate being more than 10 to 15 minutes myself. Obviously, I can't attest for what anybody else is going to have.
And that was my follow-up. Can we get a estimate from everybody else, or because I don't want to be sitting here till one.
We can take sort of a pause right now and poll the room. If you guys are looking to take a lunch, if we're going to go a while, I'd rather not be rushed to the end of my questions. If we're going to take a break, we can take a break and come back. However that needs to work.
Thank you. So if you guys want to check among yourselves.
No, does anyone else have questions that they want to ask, and if so, how much time? Anyone?
This is Stephen Tatum. At this time, I don't believe we'll have any questions.
Anyone from the interveners?
This is Alex Andrade. I don't believe I'll have any questions.
Okay, so let's proceed. Maybe we can complete the deposition without a break.
Thank you, Alan.
Yep. All right, Mr. Barker. Like I said, this will bounce around a little bit, so forgive me. I wanted to start with a couple of questions that were just covered. You mentioned in discussion of lawsuits that you might have been involved in sort of with the county versus individually. Do you know how many counties the lawsuit is involved in at this particular moment, other than the customary use case?
No, sir.
Okay. Are you personally named in any lawsuits that have been brought against the county, other than and I know you're not named in the CU case, but just for the sake of these questions, just put the CU case aside. Are you personally named in any lawsuits other than, I believe it's the EEOC action with Ms. Maxwell?
No, sir. Not that I'm aware.
Okay. Can you just give me the Cliff Notes version of what I've never seen the lawsuit? What is the allegation in the Heather Maxwell EEOC action?
Wish I could explain that to you. I don't understand it myself. I'm not really sure, to be honest with you. It didn't really have anything to do with me. So the allegation as far as myself.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Mr. Sickler, because this is pending because this is pending litigation in which he is a named defendant, I think it's inappropriate to ask him questions that could ultimately be used against him in that litigation. So I'm going to request that you withdraw that question, or we will move for a protective order.
Well, I'll put a pin in it, as Alan has done. I'm not going to withdraw the question. We may want to cross that bridge with the judge at a later date, but I won't force an answer on the issue if we're going to terminate the deposition, because I'd like to get an answer to the rest of my questions. For the record, my question is simply whether or not he has an understanding of what the allegations are against him, not what he did, what he contends he did or didn't do, just whether or not he's read the complaint and has an understanding of the allegation.
You asked him to describe it, and that's where the red flag jumped up for me, Mr. Sickler. But thank you.
Okay. Forgive me, some of these have been covered. I believe in your employment history background, you mentioned that you were at one point were you the Director of Emergency Management for the Board of County Commissioners?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And when did that employment cease?
1997.
Okay. And what was the circumstance of that, the sort of cessation of that employment? Was it a resignation, a termination? What were the circumstances there?
I resigned.
Okay. And forgive me, we covered a lot of work history. Is this the resignation that was related to an allegation having been made against you, and you decided to resign from the county at that time and seek other employment?
No, sir.
No. Okay. Refresh my recollection. What was the resignation that was related to that particular issue?
I was getting paid $28,190 a year. Could not get a raise. Politics were pretty sticky. I pretty much had my fill of it. Had another job offer making more money. So I resigned and went to it.
Okay. Were there any pending issues or allegations against you at that time
No,
when you resigned from the emergency management director position?
No, sir.
Okay. Mr. Barker, have you ever given out your personal email account to members of the public for conducting county business?
No, sir.
You've never sent an email that says, hey, it's Mike Barker, I put it on my calendar, barkermd01@aol.com is my personal email?
I can't tell you what emails I might have sent. I give my email address. I mean, if somebody got my email that's from me, they knew what my email address was.
Okay. You are aware, though, that use of personal email address for county business would be a violation of sunshine law, correct?
I don't use my personal email for county business.
Okay. In relation to the Heather Maxwell issue, did you personally participate in any vote at a public meeting of the Board of County Commissioners on whether or not to terminate Ms. Maxwell?
I'm going to object and move for a protective order.
About whether or not he voted at a public meeting?
The lawyer for Heather, is that correct?
I'm sorry, I couldn't.
Yeah, I don't know. Deposition. And yesterday, well, the only one, she said,
I'm sorry, whoever that is, if you could mute, it would be greatly appreciated. Mr. Theriak, I'm asking a question about whether or not he voted at a public meeting, which would be a matter of public record. I just don't know the answer to the question. I'm not sure what the objection would be to whether or not he voted at a public meeting.
I am objecting on the grounds that this is pending litigation. I'm going to move for a protective order and ask Judge Green to preclude this line of questioning when there is a pending lawsuit against the commissioner, and you are asking questions regarding that pending lawsuit. Now, Judge Green may disagree and understand that, but at this juncture, I think it's inappropriate to have this commissioner answer questions on the record regarding a lawsuit against him.
I'm going to ask one more for the record, and then we can move on. Mr. Barker, do you know the date of the meeting at which the vote was held for termination of Heather Maxwell?
There was no. There was none.
Uh,
There was none.
There was none? Okay. So I would take that as an answer to my prior question as well then?
That's correct.
Okay. Have you ever personally received a public records request for your private email account?
Personally or through the county? I think through the county we have.
Okay, but I'm asking if you received it.
Personally, no, sir.
Okay. Were you ever provided a copy of a public records request requesting your personal email account?
I think there's one come through the county, yes.
Okay, and that's all I'm trying to ask if you've ever actually physically seen one, because all we're here today for is your personal knowledge. So I'm just asking if you've ever actually physically laid eyes on a public record request for your personal email account.
Yes, through the county, yes.
Okay, do you know did you actually provide access to your private email account in response to that public record request?
I provided the emails that I had, yes.
Okay. I don't want to necessarily bring up Exhibit 1 if we don't have to. I understand the visual issues you have. But I did want to ask if in your review of it, we can bring it up if you need, if in your review of Exhibit 1, it appeared to be a complete donor list for your campaign contributions. And I'm happy to bring it back up if that'll refresh your recollection.
Yeah, and again, it looks like that's probably all there was, but without going back into my financial statements, it was released to the supervisor of elections office. I couldn't tell you exactly, but it looks like that's probably accurate. There wasn't that many.
Okay. Do you have any specific recollection of receiving campaign contributions from either Suzanne Harris or Hollis Risley?
Hollis Risley, I believe I did. Suzanne Harris, I did not.
Okay. I apologize. If I'm looking off to the side, it's because I'm taking notes. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just trying to not have to rehash a lot of old ground on some of these things. Have you ever had any discussions on applying for or accepting a position as the acting or permanent county manager for Walton County?
No, sir.
In relation to, I see in my notes now, I've refreshed my own recollection. I believe you said you were at Walton County Sheriff's Office starting on January 1st, 2009. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. You started out as a lieutenant. Mid-year, you were promoted to captain. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then you left sometime in, I believe you said maybe August. I won't hold you to an exact month, but maybe August of 2010. Does that sound right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and this would have been the position with a county agency that you resigned from after an allegation was made against you. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Do you recall the name of the investigator who handled the investigation in relation to that allegation?
I do not.
Okay. Does Bill Chapman sound correct to you?
Bill Chapman was not an investigator at that time. He was the undersheriff.
Undersheriff. Okay, but as the undersheriff, could he have conducted an investigation into these allegations on behalf of the sheriff's department?
I absolutely couldn't answer that. I don't know.
Okay. Did you ever have any conversations with Mr. Chapman about whether or not to resign versus being fired in connection with that investigation?
I did not.
Okay. I believe Mr. Levine asked you some questions about people putting up umbrellas and the like on your personal property at 123 Beaver Dam Road, and you said you didn't really have an opinion one way or the other. I wanted to follow up on a slightly different usage. Do you have any idea how you would respond if any members of the general public came onto your private property and began hunting?
Sir, it's a hypothetical question, so I guess have to cross that bridge when it comes to it.
Okay, so so you wouldn't, as you sit here today, you have no opinion one way or the other whether or not the active use of firearms on your property would necessitate you removing those people from your property.
No, sir.
Okay. All right, moving on to some more direct questions about Edgewater specifically. Are you familiar with Edgewater Beach Condominium?
Yes, sir.
Do you know where they're physically located?
Yes, sir.
Okay. As you sit here today, can you testify, sort of in follow-up to Mr. Levine's line of questions, can you testify with any specificity whether or not you've actually been on the dry sand beach directly seaward of the Edgewater Beach condominium on what is today the Edgewater Beach condominium property?
I have in the past, yes.
Okay. And what specific uses and time frames do you recall?
Walking, pretty much.
Other than, let me qualify this as
Okay.
Mr. Levine did. I apologize for cutting you off. Other than the traversing that was discussed, driving or walking.
No,
Other
sir.
than those.
No, sir.
So you don't have any specific recollection of ever being on the beach that is what constitutes now Edgewater Beach's parcel of property for any purpose other than driving or walking?
No, sir.
Okay. And in specific relation to the walking, not the driving, do you have any specific recollection of whether or not that was in the wet sand or the dry sand?
No, sir.
Okay. I didn't get your date of birth, but I'm assuming that you were about 22, 23 in 1982. Is that correct?
Correct. 22.
Fair enough. I took a guesstimate off of the 9, 10, 11-year-old. In June of 1982, there would have been a public hearing for the approval of the application of development order for the Edgewater Beach condominium. Do you recall getting the public notice for that hearing, for the June 8, 1982 hearing for the approval of the application for development approval for the Edgewater DRI?
No, sir.
Is it fair then to assume that you did not actually attend the public hearing on June 8, 1982, wherein the issue was discussed and the Walton County Board of County Commissioners voted to approve the Edgewater Beach DRI?
I think that would be a fair assumption.
Okay. And so similarly, and this is one of those lawyer things I'm sure you know, I then have to say, is it also fair to assume that you didn't lodge any objections either at the meeting or prior to the meeting in relation to the approval by Walton County, the Board of Walton County Commissioners for the Edgewater DRI?
I think that would be a fair assumption too, as well.
Okay. And then I would also assume that you did not take any actions to appeal or request any appeal of that approval after the June 8, 1982 public hearing. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Let me just take one look over my notes, and I may be about finished. I believe we've talked a little bit about the issues of what evidence you have or have not reviewed in relation to the inception of this lawsuit. I know you weren't a county commissioner at the time that occurred. My question to you is, do you have any knowledge, recollection, or have you reviewed any evidence or testimony of any member of the public using Edgewater's Beach, just between those property lines of Edgewater's Beach, from 1982 to the present?
I don't recall any, no, sir.
Give me just 1 second. That one came to my mind. I do actually have to check my notes at this point. Give me just a second. I believe you stated that you had sold real estate in Walton County. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Do you have any recollection of showing, marketing, or listing beachfront property?
Yes.
Okay. In relation to those, what were the time frames? And I guess let me get really specific. Did you ever list beachfront property?
Yes.
Okay. And what were the time frames of those listings, to the best of your recollection?
early 2000 to mid 2000.
Were you in any way responsible for putting together the MLS listings? I'm assuming they were listed on the MLS, but the MLS listings for those properties.
Yes.
Okay. Within those MLS listings, do you have any recollection of whether or not you indicated that the beaches for those properties were private?
No, sir. I don't have any recollection of that.
So you don't know one way or the other, and I just want to get clarity for the record. You don't have any recollection one way or the other
Correct.
whether or not there was any inclusion of the private nature of the beach in those MLS listings, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Have you ever sold, other than these listings, have you ever sold beachfront property that you did not list?
No, sir.
Okay. Did you ever have any conversations that you recall with the buyers of the beachfront properties that you did market as the listing agent?
Don't think I ever sold any of them.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. I made an assumption.
Wish I had.
I just sort of, it's beachfront property. It normally goes like hotcakes, but I suppose in that early 2000 it could come or go.
Yeah.
At this point, I think that's all I have.
Does the county have any questions?
No, we
Or
don't.
I should add,
I'm sorry.
does any intervener based upon, what Mr. Sickler asked have any questions? And same question for the county.
We have no follow-up questions, and Commissioner, you have the right to read the transcript to make sure the court reporter accurately transcribed your statements. I recommend that you read it.
Okay. Yes.
And we have a standing order, so you will get an opportunity to read the transcript. Thank you.
Okay.
Are we done, Mr. Levin?
We're done.
Thank you.
We're pleading out. We are reserving any rights that we have. With the questions, we put a pin in where there were objections based upon legislative privilege.
Understood.
Or other.
Or in my regard, in terms of the ongoing litigation issues.
Understood.
Before we go off the record, any counsel who do not have a standing order, would you like to order a copy of this transcript or video?
No, thank you.
Not at this time.
Okay, this concludes today's proceedings. We're going off the record at 12:28 p.m.